Welcome back to our channel, dear viewers. We're thrilled to have you here. Before we dive into today's chilling narrative, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to continue unraveling the most intriguing stories from around the globe. Today, we pose a question to you. Have you ever contemplated the psyche of a genius who descended into madness? Have you ever tried to fathom the thought processes that could turn a brilliant mind into a harbinger of terror? If these questions have piqued your curiosity, then stay with us as we embark on a dark journey into the life and crimes of Theodore Kaczynski, better known as the Unabomber. A tale of brilliance, madness, and destruction awaits. So buckle up and let's dive into the enigma of the Unabomber. Ever pondered on the mind of a genius turned madman? Ever heard of the Unabomber? Let us delve into a mystery that ensnared an entire nation in fear, the enigma of the Unabomber. He was no ordinary criminal. He was a man of superior intellect whose brilliance was overshadowed by his terrifying deeds. The Unabomber's reign of terror spanned almost 2 decades, from the late 70s to the mid-90s. His crimes were not mere acts of violence, but meticulously planned operations that instilled an unsettling fear in the American public. Letters laced with terror, parcels packed with dread, each one a chilling reminder of the man lurking in the shadows. His actions were not random, his targets not chosen by chance. Each was part of a larger, terrifying design, a twisted manifesto of a brilliant but deranged mind. This is the story of Theodore Kaczynski, the Unabomber, a man of brilliance, madness, and destruction. Born in 1942 in Chicago, Theodore Kaczynski's life was far from ordinary, even from the start. His parents, working-class Polish immigrants, quickly noticed their son's extraordinary intelligence. As a child, Kaczynski was constantly curious, always eager to learn and understand the world around him. His intellect was not just impressive, it was prodigious. By the tender age of 10, he was already excelling in advanced mathematics and science, areas that would later become central to his infamous crimes. Theodore's exceptional intellect was both a gift and a curse. It set him apart from his peers, making him an outcast, a loner. But it also paved the way for his entry into one of the most prestigious educational institutions in the world. At the age of just 16, Kaczynski was accepted into Harvard University. At Harvard, Kaczynski's isolation from society deepened. He was younger, intellectually advanced, and socially awkward, a combination that made it difficult for him to fit in. His peers were older, more experienced, and had a clear understanding of social norms, which Kaczynski struggled to grasp. This isolation was not just emotional, but also physical. He spent most of his time alone in his dorm room or the library, immersed in complex mathematical theories and problems. However, the seeds of his isolation were sown much earlier. His mother often spoke of a time when he was a baby and was hospitalized. For several weeks he was isolated from his parents and human touch, an experience some believe may have triggered his later detachment from society. While at Harvard, Kaczynski was also exposed to a controversial psychological experiment that some believe may have contributed to his later actions. The experiment, led by psychologist Henry A. Murray, involved intense and often humiliating interrogations designed to break down the individual's mind. For Kaczynski, this may have further exacerbated his feelings of alienation and mistrust towards society. In the end, Kaczynski's early years were marked by a paradoxical combination of tremendous intellectual achievement and profound social isolation. His exceptional intelligence led him down a path of isolation, a path that would eventually lead to a life of crime. From a promising mathematician to a secluded hermit, Kaczynski's life took a dark turn. In the late 60s, Theodore Kaczynski, the bright young mathematician, began to feel disillusioned by the fast-paced, technology-driven modern world. He decided to sever his ties from society and retreated into solitude, choosing the wilds of Montana as his new home. There, nestled amidst the expansive wilderness, Kaczynski built a small, primitive cabin, devoid of electricity and running water. He lived a life of extreme simplicity, growing his food, hunting and reading by the dim light of a kerosene lamp. In this self-imposed isolation, Kaczynski's mind began to churn. He saw the rapid industrialization and technological advancements not as progress, but as the root of human misery and environmental destruction. In his solitude, he penned down his thoughts, his criticisms, and his fears, which eventually culminated in his infamous manifesto, Industrial Society and Its Future. His anti-technology and anti-industrialization beliefs grew stronger with each passing day. He saw the world through a distorted lens, one where technological progress was the enemy of mankind. His resentment towards the modern world was not just ideological, it was deeply personal. He believed that he was a victim of the technological society that he so despised. His brilliant mind wasted away in the wilderness. But Kaczynski's beliefs were not just confined to his writings. His growing frustration and anger began to manifest in a darker, more sinister way. He started plotting a violent campaign against those he believed were responsible for advancing technology and industrialization. His targets were not just individuals, but the very foundations of modern society. His descent into madness was complete. From a brilliant mind that once held promise for a bright future in academia, Kaczynski had become a recluse, a radical, and a ticking time bomb, waiting to unleash his vengeance on the world. His beliefs and isolation set the stage for a terrifying campaign of terror. In 1978, a reign of terror began, orchestrated by a man hidden in the wilderness. This was not the work of your average criminal, but of a highly intelligent, deeply disturbed individual who would later be known as the Unabomber. Over the course of 17 long years, this shadowy figure conducted a relentless campaign of fear and violence. His weapon of choice? Homemade bombs, meticulously crafted and sent through the mail to unsuspecting victims. The targets were random, but all shared a common thread. They were symbols of a society the Unabomber deeply despised. Professors, executives, computer store owners, each was selected to send a chilling message. As the bombings continued, they became more sophisticated, more deadly. The Unabomber's signature was his careful attention to detail, a trait that made his devices difficult to trace. Each bomb was a unique creation, designed to confound investigators and wreak maximum havoc. The Unabomber's campaign was not just about physical violence, it was a psychological war, designed to instill a deep-seated fear in every corner of American society. The simple act of opening a letter became fraught with tension. The Unabomber had turned the mundane into a potential death sentence. His reign of terror was a macabre game of cat and mouse with law enforcement. Despite their best efforts, the authorities seemed always one step behind this elusive adversary. The Unabomber left few clues, and those he did were often red herrings, designed to mislead and confuse. The fear was palpable. The Unabomber had become a phantom menace, his identity unknown, his motives unclear. The only certainty was the unpredictability of his next move. His sporadic attacks kept the public on edge, never knowing when or where the next bomb would explode. His reign was one of the longest and most intense campaigns of domestic terrorism in American history. It was a reign marked by fear, uncertainty, and the chilling realization that even the simplest aspects of daily life could be turned into a weapon. For 17 years, the Unabomber remained an elusive ghost, instilling fear across the nation. His name became synonymous with terror, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the human heart. In 1996, the long hunt for the Unabomber finally reached its climax. This marked the end of a nearly two-decade-long reign of terror. The elusive figure who had been haunting the nation was finally cornered. His name, Theodore J. Kaczynski. Kaczynski was captured in his remote cabin in Montana on April 3, 1996. The cabin, devoid of electricity or running water, was a stark reflection of his anti-technology manifesto. This was the very place where he meticulously crafted the deadly devices that had claimed the lives of 3 people and injured 23 others over a span of 17 years. His capture was the result of the largest and costliest investigation in the history of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The breakthrough came not from the state-of-the-art technology or from the seasoned investigators, but rather from an unlikely source. Kaczynski's younger brother David, who had identified the infamous Unabomber's writings. Following his capture, the trial was a spectacle, attracting attention worldwide. Kaczynski stood before the court, a gaunt figure with wild hair and beard, seemingly unfazed by the gravity of his actions. His defense team pleaded insanity, citing his reclusive lifestyle and eccentric beliefs. But Kaczynski rejected this plea, asserting his sanity and standing by his anti-technology philosophy. The court, however, saw things differently. On January 22, 1998, Kaczynski was sentenced to 4 life sentences plus 30 years without the possibility of parole. The judge imposing the sentence described his crimes as extremely wicked, shockingly evil and vile. In the confines of his supermax prison cell in Colorado, Kaczynski lives out his days. The man who once terrorized a nation with his bombs now resides in a tiny room, a bitter irony not lost on those who remember the Unabomber's reign of fear. The reign of the Unabomber had finally come to an end, but the fear and mystery he created would linger on. His story serves as a chilling reminder of the lengths to which one man, driven by a distorted ideology, can go to wage a war against society. Theodore Kaczynski, the Unabomber, a man whose life story is as complex as it is chilling. This brilliant yet troubled individual's actions have left an indelible mark on society. Born in Chicago in the mid-20th century, Kaczynski was a child prodigy who later turned into a recluse in the wilderness of Montana. His intellect, combined with his deep-seated resentment towards modern technology, led him to orchestrate a bombing campaign that lasted nearly 2 decades. Kaczynski's reign of terror resulted in the death and injury of numerous innocent people, causing widespread fear and panic. His elusive nature baffled law enforcement agencies for years, his capture only possible due to his own brother's intervention. His infamous manifesto, while a chilling testament to his beliefs, has unfortunately inspired others to follow in his destructive path. His legacy is a sobering lesson for us all. The Unabomber, a symbol of fear and madness, serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of a brilliant mind turned rogue. We've reached the end of our journey, but the conversation doesn't stop here. We want to hear from you. Do you think the Unabomber's story could have taken a different turn? What are your thoughts on the factors that led him down the path of destruction? Were there any red flags that could have been spotted earlier? Your perspectives are vital, and we'd love to hear them in the comments section. If you have suggestions for future deep dives or topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to share those as well. Remember, your engagement helps us create content that is relevant and engaging for you. So don't be shy. Dive into the discussion, share your thoughts, and let's continue to explore these intriguing stories together. Until our next journey, stay curious, stay vigilant, and keep the conversation going.